Shabbat Shalom, Happy Sabbath. Boker Tov, good morning. This morning we want to look at Yahweh's divine timekeeping. And the reason for that is this, that the book of Jubilees, or Yobelim, it makes the literary claim that there is a divine calendar that consists of 364 days, divisible by 7. So we have 7 days that make 1 week. We have 7 years, at the end of which the children of Israel were asked to keep the land Sabbath. And then we have 7 times 7, that's 49. And the 50th year is a Jubilee. So the year is divided up in 4 different portions, each of which has 91 days. And so each of those quarters starts with the new moon, as do all the months of Yah's calendar starts with a new moon. And each of those 4 quarters, they all start on the 4th day of the week, which is Wednesday, the very day that the luminaries were made by Yah. So this morning we want to look at this calendar and how it uniquely fixes the Kodesh festivals in their seasons, and ask that we keep them. So we want to follow this heptadic structure, this series of 7s that Yah has divinely put together for us to follow. And he warns in the book of Jubilee that if we avoid doing it, we would become confused with the keeping of the feast days. So we want to take a good look at that this morning, because it is very, very important that we take a look at it. And I want you to join me, therefore, in the book of Yobelim, in the 1st chapter, because like the book of the prophet Hanok, it personifies the celestial bodies as they run through the divinely ordained courses, using gendered pronouns to describe their action. The sun is referred to as a male and the moon as a female. So it's interesting how these things are given gender rating. Come with me to the book of Yobelim, chapter 1. And it came to be in the 1st year of the children of Israel coming out of Mitzrayim, that's Egypt, in the 3rd month, that is the month of Sivan. They were coming out of Egypt. And it was on the 16th day of the month. the word says, and Elohim spoke to Moshe, saying, "Come up to me on the mountain, and I shall give you 2 tablets of stones of the Torah and of the command which I have written, that you may teach them." So we know that at that time it would be in our reckoning today about May or June time. That would be in the season of Pentecost, Shavuot. And so we want to follow this through because this is the calendar that Enoch had, and it's the one that Jubilee promotes literally. It's a solar calendar. So Yah called Moshe up to Mount Sinai, and the word says that it was on the 16th day. Now, when you read this, you've got to understand that in the context of Exodus chapter 19. Because it says that the children of Israel had reached Mount Sinai on the first day of that month. And Moses had gone up into the mountain, and Yah told him that he was coming down in 3 days' time. He should ask the people to prepare themselves, sanctify themselves, so he could come down. And he came down 3 days subsequent to that time, and he spoke morality to them, captured in Exodus chapter 20. He gave them the 10 Commandments. So what you're reading here now is Moses is now going up to get copies of those tablets, because the words have been spoken already. And it says Moses waited. The mountain was covered with cloud, and on the 7th day, Yah called out to him. And he called to Moshe, this is verse 3, on the 7th day out of the midst of the cloud, and the appearance of the esteem of Yahweh was like a flaming fire on top of the mountain. And Moshe was on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights, and Elohim taught him the earlier and the later history of the division of all the days and the law and the witness. And he said, "Incline your heart to every word which I shall speak to you on this mountain, and write them in a book, in order that their generations, plural, may see how I have not forsaken them for all the evil which they have done in transgressing the covenant which I establish between me and you for their generations this day on Mount Sinai. I said to them that if they obey me, they would be unto me a kingdom of priests." But it wasn't long after, during the time that Moses has gone up now to receive these instructions from Yah, they had an encounter with a golden calf. It was at this point that Moses was coming down and broke the commandments, even as the people had broken the covenant. So I want you to join me now in verse 9. "For they shall forget all my commands, even all that I command them, and they shall walk after the Gentiles, and after their uncleanness, and after their shame, and shall serve their mighty ones, and these shall come to be an offense to them, and a tribulation, and an affliction, and a snare. And many shall perish, and they shall be taken captive, and shall fall in the hands of the enemy, because they have forsaken my laws and my commands and the festivals of my covenant. Did you get that? They have forsaken my laws, said Yah, and the festivals of my covenant. He wants you to know that the feast days are inextricably linked to the covenant. If you're not keeping the festivals, you have broken the covenants. Let me read it again just for your sake. They have forsaken my laws and my commands and the festivals of my covenant and my Shabbat and my Kodesh place, and I have Kodesh for myself in their midst and my Mishkan. So Yah wants you to know that the covenant that he made with you, it's premised not only on the Ten Commandments, but on the festivals of my covenant. And so even as the children of Israel anciently did not follow through on the agreement that Yah made with them, you who were baptized in Yeshua, saying you're going to follow him, you too have broken the commandments in that you have not followed through with the festivals of the commandments. Yah said they've broken it. And it was prophesied here that it would be broken. So we want to look at this in ways that perhaps you've not looked at it before, because the word says that this calendar, which is different from the Gregorian calendar, the book of Yobelin, even as the book of Enoch, collectively they present a flat earth, and a earth that is orbited by the sun and the moon. That's what they do. And if you should test this as an hypothesis, even as Joshua did in chapter 10, he simply said, sun, stand still. Moon, stand still. And the word said that they did. And therefore, the question that lingers is this: if the earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, as modern science tells us, why did Joshua not tell the earth to stay still rather than the sun and the moon? This calendar tells us that there are 4 quarters in the year. Often I hear people say, well, it's 13 Sabbath. And we're going to have a special day on 13 Sabbath. And they start their 13 Sabbath beginning the month of January, because that's the year that Rome gives them. I would just like to remind them and to inform those that didn't know that January really is the month of Tevet, which is the 10th month of the Hebrew calendar. How can you start your year in the 10th month and say you're having 13 Sabbaths? That's part of the deception. And so the Jubilee is letting you know that you've already violated the covenant agreement. In Jeremiah 31 to 33, Jeremiah says, Yah is going to make a covenant with us, and he's going to put the laws, the ones that he gave Moshe on Mount Sinai, into our hearts. And we must conclude, therefore, that it includes the feast days, because he said here in the book of Jubilees that the people had broken the festivals half his covenant. That's what they did. So come with me now to chapter 6 of the same book. And on the new moon of the 3rd month, he went out from the ark and built an altar on the mountain. We're now dealing with Noah, who precedes Moses. And Jubilee wants you to know that Noah kept all these commands, including the feast days. So when I hear people say these festivals, they are for the Jews, I wonder, what do they mean? Yah is talking about a people that is characterized by righteousness, not merely by demographic. Let's read. And on the 3rd new moon, on the new moon of the 3rd month, he went out from the ark and built an altar on the mountain, and he made atonement for the earth, and took a young goat and made atonement with his blood for all the guilt of the earth, for all that had been on it had been destroyed, except those that were in the ark with Noah. Don't walk over that. Don't let that statement pass as if it's a casual thought. It says Noah went out and made an atonement. Atonement is the work of a priest. So was Noah a priest? Should you ask that question? Peter told us in 2 Peter that this man, Noah, he was a preacher of righteousness. He said he was the 8th preacher of righteousness, meaning that Noah here was the 8th Melchizedek. He wants you to know that. And in knowing that, you would understand that Melchizedek is an office rather than being a person. And so the Melchizedek that Abraham met in the book of Bereshit, chapter 14, when he was coming back from the war with the kings, is none other than the 9th Melchizedek, who is the son of Noah, who is Shem. We've got to understand that. The ultimate Melchizedek, of course, is Yeshua. But it's an office. And so Noah here made atonement. And he placed the fat of it on the altar, and he took a bull and a goat and the male goat and salt and turtle dove and the young pigeon, and placed the burnt offering on the altar and poured an offering on it and mixed it with oil and sprinkled wine and spread frankincense over it and caused a sweet fragrance to arise acceptable before Yahweh. And Yahweh smelled the sweet fragrance, and he made a covenant with him that there should no longer be a flood to destroy the earth. Now, as this time unfolded, we read in Genesis chapter 11 that Nimrod came about and didn't listen to this counsel. Yah said, I'm not going to do this again, at least not with water. And so they began at the place of Shinar to build a tower. And we read in the book here of Jubilees that it took them 43 years to build a tower of Babel, and Yah came down and confused their language, because up until that time, all the people spoke one language you believed to be Hebrew. Nimrod spoke Hebrew. The point here, though, that I don't want you to miss is that these feast days that are part of the covenant agreement that Yah made with us, Noah kept them before Moses was born. It's there. And we too ought to keep them. We must keep them. Verse 20, and you shall command the children of Israel to observe this festival. Which festival? This is the feast of Shavuot, Pentecost, the Feast of Weeks. In all their generations, for a command unto them, one day in the year, in the month they shall celebrate the festival. We're all sons of Noah, but are we children of Abraham? Are you with me? It says, all the generations must keep this festival, for it is the festival of Shavuot and the feast of first fruits. This feast is twofold and of a double nature, according to what is written and engraved concerning it. Celebrate it, for I have written in the book of the first Torah, that's Genesis, in that which I have written for you, that you should celebrate it in its season, one day in the year, and I explained to you its slaughtering, that the children of Israel should remember and should celebrate it throughout their generations in this month, one day in every year. And on the new moon of the first month, and on the new moon of the fourth month, and on the new moon of the seventh month, and on the new moon of the 10th month. These are the 4 quarters that I spoke about earlier on, that has 91 days each. And so when you add all that up together, you get 364-day year divisible by 7. So you get a 52-week year. That's the calendar here that Jubilee presents to us. And so if you should consider this in the context of the prophecy of Daniel, come with me to the book of Daniel, because I want to show you how this calendar is really very much part of the prophecy of Daniel. Daniel chapter 9, and we are going to read from verse 24. Daniel chapter 9. 70 weeks are decreed for your people and for you to Kodesh city, to put an end to transgression and to seal up sins and to cover wickedness and to bring in everlasting righteousness and to seal up the vision and the Nabi, the prophet, and to anoint the most Kodesh. So Daniel has a vision, and he's shown that 70 weeks are determined for Yah's people. Now, if we stay in context of what I'm explaining, which is the book of Yobalin, 70 times 7, because these are weeks of years. They're weeks of years. So it's 70 times 7, 490. So 490 years have been decreed to get rid of sin, to bring in everlasting righteousness, according to what we read here in Daniel. So you can see the coherence between Jubilee and Daniel, because Yah gave them different aspects of a same message, because it's all towards the kingdom. So what Jubilee does with the calendar that it presents is letting you know that all of these festivals, all of these events, all of these covenants, they culminate into an end time scenario. And perhaps you will understand better when you read Genesis chapter 6 and verse 3. Let's go there and we'll come back to Daniel. Genesis chapter 6, that's Bereshit, and verse 3. Yah made a statement that has somehow troubled many people. And Yahweh said, my Ruach, my spirit, shall not strive with mankind forever. In his going astray, he is flesh, and his days shall be 120 years. Now, some have conjectured on this, and they have said that this 120 talks about the time that Yah had given the people as a probation. Some had said, well, man's lifespan is cut from the enormity of the years that some had lived previously, like Melchizedek. Adam himself lived 930, and so on and so forth. But that's not what Yah is talking about here. He says, man's probation, starting from Adam to the end of the age, will be 120 years, but he's talking about jubilees. So all you have to do is to multiply 120 by 50, and you get 6,000. 6 is a number of a man. And he gave man 6 days, and he's letting you know the 7th day is really the Shabbat, the millennium. So today, as we meet, we're only rehearsing, we're preparing for the main event, which is the millennium, when he comes to reign on the earth. You've got to understand that. I have given you 6 days. But those days, you must remember, according to 2 Peter 3:8, Peter says, don't let this thing pass by. This is not a casual thought. Don't be that nonchalant. Don't be so. Because with Yah, because he doesn't operate in time. Time is a product of creation. The whole idea he gave us time was to prepare in time to step out of time and into creation, which is the eternity. We're given time. We're allocated time to step out of time into eternity where Yah operates. Peter says, each day then is 1,000 years. So Yah says, man's probation is 120 times the Jubilee of 50, which is 6,000. After that, I will come and reign with them for 1,000 years on the earth. So when Daniel had the vision, he says 490 years, 70 weeks of years are determined for thy people. Let's read it again for emphasis. 70 weeks are determined, are decreed for your people and for your Kodesh city, your holy city, to put an end to transgression and to seal up sins and to cover wickedness and to bring in everlasting righteousness and to seal up the vision and the Nabi and to anoint the most Kodesh. Know then and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the Prince, shall be 7 weeks. From the time that the decree goes forth from the king in the time of Ezra, it's going to be 7 weeks of years. That's going to be 49. That leads to the Messiah. That's Yeshua. From that king, they're going to be 49. And after that 49, there's going to be 62 weeks. Let's read it. Know then and understand from the going forth of the command to restore and to build Jerusalem until Mashiach, the Prince, is 7 weeks and 62 weeks. So that's 69 weeks. So that takes us to 483. It shall be built again, Jerusalem will be built again with streets and a trench, but in times of affliction. There's going to be troublesome time. And as we read through the book of Ezra and Nehemiah, we understand that they had problems. But what we're seeing here, every event, every situation is chronicled in this calendar given by the book of Jubilee. Everything is there. But it is divisible by 7. Everything is in 7. And after 62 weeks, Mashiach, that's Yeshua, shall be cut off and have naught. So remember what I said earlier, according to Daniel 9 and verse 24, that 490 years were given to bring Jerusalem in line, to bring Israel in line. Because Israel seemed to have been suffering with vertebral subluxation. Or what do I mean? vertebral subluxation, when understood in the context of a chiropractor, is that there is a misalignment, a vertebra misalignment that affects the nervous system. And you need to be brought back into alignment with the head. The body is misaligned with the head. The church is misaligned with the head, Yeshua. He is the head and we are the body, and we are not in alignment. We have spiritual subluxation. And so this calendar here is designed to bring us back in line with him, keeping the feast day and the Sabbath. Otherwise, you're out of covenant with him. You've got to understand that. You must understand that. No news could be so repugnant as we so often read in Matthew chapter 25. It says, when he comes, he will put some people on the right side and some people on the left. And we will hear those on the right, the benediction, come ye blessed of my Father, come inherit the kingdom prepared. How long? From Genesis, from the foundation of the world. Come, my Father had this good thing for you from, you didn't know it because he told it to Adam, but because you were in Adam's line and you were not supposed to be born until the end time. You didn't know this, but I put it down. I wrote it down. I gave Moses and the prophet to preserve it for you so you can read it for yourself. Now you know. But on the left side, I will say to them, depart from me. I never knew you. But how could you say that when they were church members for many years and they did many things that they thought were good? Depart. I never knew you. Those who come near me, says Moses right in Leviticus chapter 10, must bring glory to Yah. Not to themselves. Not to themselves. And so the Messiah here is cut off at the week 483. Remember, it's 490 years, so 1 week is left. But some have taught that after the Messiah died and after Stephen is stoned, this prophecy has been fulfilled. It has been fulfilled. That's what they teach. Let's read on. I don't want you to miss this. Verse 26 again. And after 62 weeks, Mashiach shall be cut off and have naught. And the people of the coming prince, as is Titus, the Roman prince, shall destroy the city. This is 70 AD. And the Kodesh place, and the end of it is with a flood, and waste are decreed, and fighting until the end. And he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. Now, we got to take note of this, because perhaps there is no more text in the Old of Scriptures that is more controversial than this one here. Verse 27. And he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, And in the middle of the week, he shall put an end to the slaughtering and the meal offering. Now, people will tell you that this is the Messiah. He made a covenant and he brought the covenant to an end. He brought it to an end. And some others will argue that this is not the Messiah. This is the Antichrist. And so people are left to conjecture. And they're wondering, well, who is right? Well, let the scriptures answer its own question. If it poses that, and we're unable to do that, turn with me to Tehillim, that's the book of Psalm, and may we find the 89th portion of that, and may we commence our reading at verse 34. I shall not profane my covenant. I shall not break my covenant. Neither would I change what has gone out from my lips. Once I have sworn by Kodeshah, I do not lie to David. His seed shall be forever, and his throne as the sun before me. Like the moon, it is established forever, and the weakness is a Shemahim, is steadfast. Now, as we just read in the book of Daniel, it says that he in there, he stopped the covenant. So what do you do with two opposing thoughts? What do you do with that when you read such things? The law of non-contradiction says that two things that are opposed to each other at the same time, they cannot both be true in time and place. They can't be true. So, Yah said, I don't break my covenant. Daniel says here, we're reading that, let's read it again. Verse 27. And he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. Remember, I said earlier that 1 week is left. And in the middle of the week, he shall put an end to the slaughtering. So if there is 1 week left from the 490 years that has been allotted to the children of Israel to make sure that Jerusalem is prepared for those who are coming, because that's where the Messiah is going to reign. What does this mean? Bearing in mind that Yeshua doesn't break his covenant. Back at Mount Sinai, it wasn't Yah who broke the covenant. It was the children of Israel who broke it. I don't break my covenant. My word, Isaiah 55 and verse 11, will not come back to me void. It will establish that which it sets out to be. My word. Hear me. Who is his word, says John 1:1. The word is Yeshua. And so here we're reading the written word, which was first the spoken word. And so the written word is fulfilled by the living word, Yeshua. That's what we're dealing with. So we hear of the word, says Yohanan chapter 1, that was in some respect abstract. In the beginning was the Word. And the Word, even at that time, when we didn't know the Word was Yah. And the Word became flesh and dwelt, walked along the streets of Jerusalem. And he left his word as a witness for us, and the apostles and the disciples and the prophet, they have written it down even as the patriarch spoke to them, and they understood it. We are reading this now, and it leaps off the pages into our understanding. That's what it does. So if a week is left, and a covenant is going to be made, and Yah doesn't break his covenant, then one can say that someone else is going to make that covenant with the people as part of a deception. And you can understand why a number of people are waiting for a temple to be rebuilt in Jerusalem, as they have read in Ezekiel chapter 40 all the way to chapter 48. But is it a future thing, or was it something that was promised, and because of the evil of Israel at that time, it was never followed through? Again, it is something to debate. But I hear Peter saying, that's Kepha, in chapter 18 of Matthew, how often must I forgive my brother? How often? Listen to the response from Yeshua. It is a deep response if you get it. It is a manicured response. Wise response. He said, 70 times 7. Peter, are you good at multiplication? 70 times 7, that's 490. The same 490 year that I'm talking here about in Daniel chapter 9. You're going to forgive your brother from all that time, from the time of this proclamation to rebuild Jerusalem until the Messiah returned, 490 years. That's what you got to do. And so the immutability and the faithfulness of Yah is made clear. I don't break my covenant. Because you didn't keep it, I'll raise other people up to come and keep it. You don't keep the feast days, but there are others who are keeping it. I'll deal with them. You didn't want a blessing, I'll give it to them. I'll bless them. I'll put them on the right. Oh, yes. That's what I'm going to do. And so, as a people, we're told that in Jubilee that the festival of Shavuot was kept for 1,335 years from the day of creation, before there ever was a Jew until the day of Noah. That's what it says in chapter 6. Furthermore, Noah and his son kept the festival of Sabbath. Well, you know what? Let's read it, because just in case anybody might say that it's not so. The word says that it was kept, and it is forever. It is, verse 17, for this reason it was ordained and written in the tablets of the Shemahim that they should celebrate the festival of Sabaoth in the month once a year to renew the covenant every year. You got to renew the covenant every year. That's what it says. You don't say that it's fulfilled. Because Yeshua in Matthew 5:17 says, I did not come to destroy what the prophets wrote. I have come to magnify the law, to make it clearer so you can see, regardless of what your denominational church, through its creed, is trying to tell you. Listen to me. Verse 18. And this old festival, the festival of weeks, was celebrated in the heavens, the Shemayin, from the day of creation. Did you hear me? It was celebrated from the day of creation till the days of Noah, 26 Yobelim, 26 jubilees, and 5 weeks of years, and Noah and his sons observed it for 7 Yobelim and 1 week a year, till the day of Noah's death. And from the day of Noah's death his sons forsook it, even as today's people have, until the days of Abraham, and they ate blood. But Abraham observed it. Abraham what? Observed it, and Yitzchak and Jacob and the children observed it up to your days. And in your days, the children of Israel forget it until you celebrate it anew in the mountain. Did you hear that? It says that for 1,335 years from creation, this thing was kept until the days of Noah. Furthermore, Noah and his sons kept the festival for 357 years. That's 7 times 50 plus 350. That's what it says. So when you come to Daniel chapter 12, verse 11 and 12, the word says, and from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that makes desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,305 and 30 days. The same time period in Daniel here links, it coheres with the book of Jubilee chapter 6. But it says to Daniel, Daniel, you shut the book. It's not for you. It's for the people of the end time. We sang this morning, did we not? We are the end time generation. And we're here to do what? To keep the commandments. But that's not what we've done. We go about and we tell people that we belong to that denominational church and so on and so forth. But we need to understand that when Yah speaks, his word is law. His word is law. And so like the impudently rich people today, Belshazzar, he and his elite guest, they had a party one night. I want you to join me in Daniel chapter 5. But I want you to get the context of what is happening to the church and to the world, because even as ancient Babylon fell, Johanna in Revelation is letting us know that spiritual Babylon will fall too. Babylon is fallen. So in order to understand what is going to happen in the end time, we must go back and rehearse, look at, study, and understand what happened in physical Babylon. So, like the people back then, Belshazzar's elite guests lived in gate communities of opulence, where comfort and privilege served to preserve their religious privileges and social habits. The curtains of privacy were tightly drawn that evening. Disconnected from divine reality, King Cyrus was soon to disturb the hollow recital of their entertainment rituals. That's what's going to happen today. We go to church and we perform perfunctorily. They are perfunctory details of rituals that we carry on. But they almost choked on their own assumption, as reality that night forced them to see what they had pretended not to observe, a bloodless hand. And also that the vessel they were drinking from were crafted by holy hands, designed for worship. The ladies arrived on that marble ballroom floor at the royal palace, adding to the elegance of sophistication that evening. Each chariot arriving glistened in the silhouette of that moonlit night. That's how it was in Babylon. Valet parking attendants wore matching robes, striding across the manicured lawns prepared customarily for the high society galas. That's how that evening was in Babylon that night. The chandeliers were exquisitely beautiful, combining functionality with light fixtures, with the artistry of Babylon decorative design, all of which enhanced the room aesthetic appeal. The sparkling, intricate design and the way they interacted with the light, especially in the crystal chandeliers, contribute to the captivating beauty that evening just before the drama of time. But all of this was in the calendar of Jubilee. It was there. That evening, time seems suspended, and the orchestral sound of Babylon's best band ceased playing. The quietness wrapped around the guests like an aircraft life jacket that night. Even tighter still was their breath, like a drawn bowstring in a fading silhouette of that last evening. That's how it was. That night, only the robe of righteousness could have saved them, which none of them were wearing. That's what happened in Babylon. You know, people read only that which they expect to see and what they believe. And in speaking to the king, Daniel's voice carried that night the sound of one who was speaking to a small child. Did you not read? Let's read it. Daniel 5, come there with me. Belshazzar the sovereign made a great feast for the 1,000 of his great men and drank wine from the presence of 1,000. While tasting the wine, Belshazzar gave orders, bring the gold and the silver vessel, which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple, which had been in Jerusalem, that the sovereign and his great men, his wives and his concubine could drink from. These were the same vessels that the people would attend the feast and drink from the festival. They were holy vessels, but he was pompous. He was impudent. I mean, he was insolent. And they played music that night. There was jazz, and they flipped to soul. And hip hop played. And the word says, and they brought the gold vessel that had been taken from the temple, each which had been in Jerusalem, and the sovereign and his great men, his wives and his concubines, drank out of them. They drank wine and praised the mighty ones of gold. Isn't that what the world is doing today? Because money has become people's identity, not character. And they live in gated communities of wealth, believing they're safe. At that moment, verse 5, the fingers of a man's hand appeared and wrote opposite the lampstand on the plaster of the walls of the sovereign palace. And the sovereign saw the part of the hand that wrote. I want to put a stop here to remind you of something. These children who were in Babylon, do you know why they got there? Do you really know why they got there? You better come with me to the book of Wehikra, Leviticus. And if you could find quickly, keep your finger in Daniel 5, chapter 25, the word says, and Yahweh spoke to Moshe on Mount Sinai, saying, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land which I give you, when you go into Israel, then the land shall observe the Sabbath of Yahweh. Must do what? Observe the Sabbath. 6 years you shall sow your field, and 6 years you shall prune your vineyard and gather the fruit. Understand what he's saying here? He's talking here of the land Sabbath. Remember, I spoke earlier and I said in Jubilee, the year is divisible by 7. So Yah is saying every 7 years you must have a land Sabbath. Let everything rest. Are you with me? 6 years you shall sow your field, and 6 years you shall prune your vineyard and gather its fruit. But in the 7th year, the land is to have a Sabbath of rest, of Sabbath. We call this a Shemitah year. Do not sow your field, nor do not prune your vineyard. Do not reap that what grows of it own or your harvest, and do not gather the grapes of the unpruned vine, for it is the year of the rest of the land. And the Sabbath of the land shall be to you for food. For you and your servant, and for your female servant, and for your hire servant, and for the stranger who sojourned with you. He said, when you go over there, you must keep the 7-day Sabbath. That's weekly. But don't forget the land Sabbath every 7 years. And after the 7 year, don't forget the 50th year, that's a Jubilee, when all debts must be repaid and all land given back and people are made free. Don't forget them. These things are written in the Shemai. They're part of the covenant agreement. Don't forget them. The church says we don't have to keep them. And Yah is written this for us for our admonition. So what did Israel do? They went over there and things were going great for them. Wealth, they were even bringing things now on the Sabbath day to sell and upset Nehemiah, and Nehemiah got indignant with them, righteously so, and this was it. So they missed 70 land Sabbath. 70 times 7 is 490. So Yah says, all right, I'm going to bring you down to Babylon, and so you will be there for 70 years. The point I want to make is that as I read Daniel chapter 5 here, it's because the children of Israel had not kept the land Sabbath why they went into captivity. Plus, they did other things too. But Yah made it known through Cyrus, when you read Isaiah chapter 45, that he had chosen a man, his own servant now, to release the people. So while they were dancing that night, Cyrus was coming up through the Euphrates River. He dredged it to capture Babylon. Why am I telling you this? Because you would have watched on the news in recent time that the Euphrates River is now drying up, almost dried up. Why? It's a sign that spiritual Babylon is about to fall. You've got to understand that. So, beyond being born in the halls of privilege, some have not attended unto anything meaningful, enigmatic. They are alluring. Such was Belshazzar. His words were dripping with disdain. Bring out the vessels. And his words were also heavy with sarcasm. Sing us a song. We don't sing our songs in Babylon. Sing us a song. We can sing Yah's song in a strange land, says the children of Israel. Clearly, like today's people, Belshazzar had trespassed on divine territory. And at that moment, his eyes became vacant. Worry attended him. He was now a prisoner in the cell of his own circumstances because of his empty and trifle deeds. And so that night, he paid dearly with his life for the things that he said and done. If this happened to Babylon then, Yah says this is a sign that something similar will happen to spiritual Babylon. Because as I read Revelation 17, as I close, the word says there's a woman there who is feeding the whole world. She has a bowl, and everybody's drinking from that bowl, from the cup of her, what? Fornication. She's feeding them with false doctrines, some of which relates to the not keeping of Yah's commandments. And so much more could have been said, and much more needs to be said. But the thing is this, that Yah has spoken, and there is this oblique deference in that we're dealing with a conflation of two concepts. Thus saith Yah, and thus saith man. who will you hear? Who will you believe? Who will you observe? Who will you obey? The fear of Yah is the commencement of wisdom. So Nicodemus came to Yeshua one night claiming to be the leader of the Sanhedrin, the Supreme Court of Israel. Clearly, he's an Israelite. And he's a man of high station, high regard. He's one, when he walks into a room, heads turn. He has influence and he has authority. But Yeshua looked at him and said, no man shall enter into the kingdom, not into the church, into the kingdom, except the same is born of water and the Spirit. What church you belong to is immaterial. Where you were born is immaterial. Where you're going is significant. You must be born again. And if you be Abraham's seed, Galatians 3:29, then you must accept Yeshua and all that he taught. And if you're not keeping the feast days, I don't care how many Sabbaths you attend weekly, there are other Sabbaths to be kept. He says, you have broken the covenant agreement. And only repentance and reform can bring you back into alignment from your spiritual subluxation with the head. May we understand this. May we ponder this and go back to the word of Yah and understand what he's calling us to. He's calling us to a person, Yeshua, not to a denomination. In Yeshua's name I pray. Amen. Hallelujah.